This is your chopper pilot here with a helicopter keybind tutorial for Arma Reforger. I don't need the voice filter today because we're going to try to make things as clear and concise as possible to make the potentially overwhelming menu and keybinds for the helicopter in Arma a little bit easier to digest. Now, last time I made a tutorial video, I used a little eagle to help us with the tutorial video, who is still unnamed. And this time I'm going to use me. Whatever you prefer, webcam or eagle, if you could let me know in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it because it can let me kind of get an idea of what to do for the next tutorial video. I'm hoping to make a much longer and extended tutorial sometime in the future, probably honestly going to be like 30 plus minutes. I've already made a tutorial video. It's a shorter video where I kind of go over a lot of things a little bit quickly or briefly. I will link that video, or you should see it on screen right now, but you should also see it in the description for this video as well. Hopefully that tutorial can help you if you're looking to fly. Today we're focusing pretty much on the keybinds, what they do, what my preferences are, and maybe some tips and tricks along the way. We're also mostly focusing on mouse and keyboard. I will talk very briefly about some controller stuff, but I'm still practicing on controller on the side, and I am working on a tutorial video for that. So that will be sometime in the future. Now, I will have an input overlay on later when we're kind of flying, but for now, I will leave it off. I am in the Game Master mode, which means that you can spawn vehicles and you can spawn units to play as so that you can practice. I've already spawned a soldier. I've already spawned a helicopter. Last video I made, I was mostly using the little bird, but today I will just mostly be inside of the Huey. I will play as my character. Once I play as my character, I'm going to go first to the settings. Let's talk about a couple of things. One thing that I actually didn't cover in my first video, which I'm kind of bummed about. My first tutorial video that I made, I forgot to mention that in gameplay settings, you need to have mouse aircraft control on. This is if you want to use your mouse to move the helicopter. That is a setting that needs to be on, and that is under gameplay. Most of what we are discussing today is going to be under the controls section. So, in the settings tab, it goes video, audio, interface, gameplay, game master, controls. You click on controls. You then will get different categories or things that you basically will care about have been split up into relevant genres or categories. The first one is common. There's one keybind that's relevant for us here, and that is the perform action keybind. Default, it is set to F. I kept it on default. This basically is open a door, interact with something. This will let you get into the helicopter. It's the most relevant because it's the first button you have to click to get inside. You can set this to whatever you want. I personally think F is perfectly fine. So I left it default, F, or Foxtrot. The equipment tab is not super necessary for us today. The character tab, again, not the most necessary or relevant today. Vehicle tab is mostly for ground vehicles, does not really relate or connect to helicopters, so this can be skipped. Then we get to the helicopter tab. At the helicopter tab, we're going to review all of these keybinds, what they do, what we need to care about, what we should focus on. So first, we're going to hop in the helicopter. We're going to scroll down to get in pilot and press F. We get into the helicopter. By default, looks like my rotor got hurt. By default, the helicopter has buttons to start the engine. I believe hold R is the default way to start or begin your engine. Personally, I don't really think it matters too much what you have as start and stop your engine. I personally preferred to make stop engine something not too easy to hit. I have it as a bunch of different buttons personally, just because I don't need to remember only one. I can just hit a bunch of different random ones to make the engine turn off. But notice how they all take 2 things to hit because I don't want to randomly turn my engine off. While my start engine button is just hold R. So pretty simple. Start engine, stop engine. I would say just make start engine. You can do default or whatever you would prefer. Stop engine, I would say have at least on 2 buttons so that you can't accidentally turn your engine off unless you really make a mistake. So that's the first relevant keybind thing that we need to care about. I will hold R to start my engine. Now, the helicopter will boot up. The next relevant and important keybind for us to care about is collective up. If you hold a button, it will make your helicopter go faster or go up into the sky. That is what collective up means. I personally set my collective up to W. The default that the game has is left shift. I personally am not really a fan of left shift. To reset the keybind, I'm going to hover over the keybind I do not want, press V as in Victor, and then for R shift, I will do the same. I'm going to add a keybind. My preference is W. The reason why I prefer W is because for me, it made more sense that W is the thing that makes me go up. Because in most video games that I've played, W is go forward or W is go up. So that is why for me it made the most sense to set. Collective down is the opposite of collective up. It makes your helicopter go down or it decreases your helicopter speed. Again, logically for me, it made more sense to have it set to S. The default, I believe, is left control and right control. Personally, I found S to make far more sense for me. Now, before I go any further, I want to make one thing crystal clear. The best keybinds are your keybinds that make sense for you. Even if my keybinds are perfect for me, they could be terrible for someone else. So at the end of the day, if something makes more sense for you, or feels more natural, or feels better, you should do the keybind that makes sense for you. Don't just do what I do because I said so. It should ultimately be what is comfortable, makes sense, and flows with your brain. That's what I would say, ultimately. But I'm going to still explain all the keybinds and my preferences. So, I can now hold W to increase my collective or make my helicopter go up. Some of the gauges below can signal or tell me what speed we are doing or if my speed is increasing or decreasing. For now, we'll not focus on those gauges. Notice how I'm only pressing W. That is the only thing I've pressed, and it has made me go up. I can now press S, and S will make me go slower or go down. As a reminder, my W is collective up, and my S is collective down. Collective up will make you go up, or increase your speed. Collective down will make you go down, or decrease your speed. Now, let's focus on the next category of keybinds. That is anti-torque left and anti-torque right. Anti-torque left, I have set to A. I also have set to E. I will not lie, I personally do not really use E that often. I mostly use A. I have anti-torque right on D. Anti-torque right and anti-torque left is what makes your helicopter basically rotate to the left and right. I can visually show you it right now. If I press A or anti-torque left, the helicopter moves to the left. If I press D or anti-torque right, the helicopter moves to the right. I think rotate was probably the wrong word to use there, but anti-torque right is where I move left, anti-torque right, I move right. A and D felt the most logical for me. The default for the game was Q and also E. Again, for me, it made more sense to have A as my keybind. Cyclic forward and cyclic back are the next categories of keybinds to discuss. Cyclic forward I have on my mouse. By default, it is on your mouse movement, and it is also on your arrow keys of your keyboard. I believe cyclic forward is down on the mouse by default, and cyclic back is up on the mouse by default. It will take a hot second to reset all these keybinds, so I will skip that for now. You can change the keybinds to your liking. If you need to make a mouse movement, it should be under the special keybind. Mouse vertical up, mouse vertical down, horizontal left, etc. So you can add that specific mouse movement. If for some reason you would prefer something different with the mouse, you just click add special keybind, click that one, and then I believe you hit add bind. We can test right now. Horizontal left, I just click it and it adds the keybind. So now I'm going to delete horizontal left because I do not need that one. What does cyclic forward and cyclic back do? So cyclic forward is going to tilt the helicopter. Notice how it shows I pulled down on the mouse. I will pull the helicopter forward. The helicopter moves down or tips the nose downward. Now the other direction, I'm assuming you can logically figure out, cyclic back is tilting the nose up. You can kind of see the mouse movement with the little input overlay below. I'm holding W to increase my speed just so I get a little bit more height. I'm pulling the mouse down. That pulls the nose down. I'm pulling the mouse forward. That pulls the nose up. Again, for some people, it makes more sense to be the other way. That is just what makes sense for me. Now, this is one tip I can give for cyclic back specifically. Cyclic back, I would highly recommend putting on its own individual unique keybind. The reason being is because using cyclic back while you are landing can help you pull off better landings. I will show off an example later. But basically, being able to tip your nose upward can help you stop from crashing into the ground. So that's one thing that I can highly recommend, is putting, if you have one keybind or one button on your mouse, I would potentially consider that to be the button that I would choose. I would choose cyclic back. I also have cyclic forward on a mouse button as well. The reason being is because cyclic forward I like using to help me fly low. Very low. So what I will do is I have two mouse buttons, and sadly the input overlay doesn't always show the other mouse button. But I'm trying to get low, nice and low, to the ground. So I am clicking my mouse buttons for cyclic forward and cyclic back, cyclic forward, cyclic back, to help me kind of get just a little bit closer to the ground by juggling with my cyclics a little bit to correct, to get just a little bit lower here and there. So, having the mouse movements on a keybind or on your mouse button, specifically cyclic forward and cyclic back, will help with landings and also help you fly lower. The last form of helicopter movement keybinds to talk about is cyclic left and cyclic right. Cyclic left is what rotates the helicopter. That's probably the better word to use there. the helicopter to the left, and cyclic right rotates the helicopter to the right. Again, I have mouse buttons for these where I put these on individual mouse buttons. I know it shows like P, but I have a Logitech G502. It allows me to bind things to my mouse buttons. So I've put normal keys like P and Y and the equal sign on my mouse so that it's easier to keybind stuff in games. So that's just like a little weird thing that I do, but it helps me have a lot of keybinds. So cyclic left and cyclic right, which are the last two keybinds, are what make you rotate. I'm moving my mouse to the left, cyclic left. I'm moving my mouse to the right, cyclic right. In combination, if you're using everything together, you should be able to maneuver the helicopter with all the buttons. Notice how I'm hitting anti-torque left. I'm holding A constantly to kind of keep the helicopter rotating. I'm keeping the helicopter tilted with the cyclic right and cyclic left. And I'm constantly using my little mouse buttons to adjust and keep my height as low as possible to the ground. Now, you can get even lower. Definitely can get a lot lower. So, when hitting all the movement keybinds, like I said, what I would say is the most important is what is comfortable, makes sense, and feels good for you. That's what I would set and do for your keybinds. The next keybinds that we can talk about, I will briefly talk about them because they're not as important. But the wheel brakes, there are some helicopters, like the large Mi-8, I believe is what it is called, that has a wheel brake. The default, I believe, is what I have set. I'm going to actually double check. So I have C. Let's reset to default. Oh, it actually was space. So I'm going to reset mine, which is C, and then I will delete this. So the wheel brakes are what they sound like. They are wheels that deploy for the helicopter. It can make your landing easier. And to my knowledge, having the wheel brakes down, I believe does not impact your flying, but if someone can correct me in the comments, that'd be greatly appreciated. But to my knowledge, it does not matter if the brakes are down. It just helps your helicopter stay more stable. I could be wrong. Honestly, I do not fly the Mi-8 that often. I mostly enjoy the Little Bird and the Huey. Start engine, stop engine, we talked about. These systems, auto hover. Let me talk about this for 1 second. Auto hover is a feature that helps your helicopter, quote unquote, automatically hover. Let me set a keybind to show what this button does. Let's do caps lock for now. So, auto hover, I click, and if you see in the bottom left-hand corner, it will show that little the little up and down has now become orange. So I'm not touching my keyboard at all, by the way. So when you activate auto hover, it technically will quote unquote help your helicopter stabilize or hover, so to speak. Now, personally, I would recommend removing the auto hover keybind. Reason being is that the auto hover keybind will technically help, but it is only a shortcut to better results. Because the auto hover keybind will not be as consistent or be as quick as if in replacement of you just learning how to do the landing. Taxi lights changes the lights within the chopper. The landing lights changes the lights, like the spotlight that the helicopter can create. To my knowledge, toggle sights is what can bring down the aiming mechanism for some of the armed variants or armed vehicles. And sight range up increases how far that armed vehicle tool aims and how further or how far down that sight works. Again, I'm not super concerned today about the armed aspects. I'm mostly just focusing on the transportation part. So if anyone wants to correct me on any of the mistakes that I potentially made in explaining some of the more armed variants, I would love to know any corrections. So that is a basic explanation of all the keybinds, what they do, and what are some of my preferences. Now, the biggest thing that I can say is that if you can try to have multiple keybinds for movements so that you can hit multiple things together at the same time. That's one thing I think that is a huge and massive disadvantage for people on controller, is that currently, at least to my understanding, with the way that the controls are currently set up, you cannot multi-keybind. You cannot have multiple keybinds for controller, you can only have one. So the difficulty is that you have to be really precise on what you choose to do. While on keyboard and mouse, you can choose as many keybinds as you want. You could theoretically have every movement on one button. Now that probably wouldn't work very well, but you could. So if you do everything and put keybinds together, then you can start doing some things where you hit buttons in combination to help with your landings. So I hit Antitorque right, I'm hitting collective back, I'm hitting the decrease my collective, and I'm hitting cyclic back and cyclic right. So in a little trying to do like a little landing or a little flip landing to try to remove a lot of my speed, I'm hitting many keybinds and many buttons in combination with each other to take advantage of the fact that I can hopefully do some maneuvers or movements with those combinations. Now, biggest thing I could suggest or recommend is practice. Playing in Game Master is no risk. The only thing that you waste is your time. You can fly around and get more experience doing landings and trying to push the limits of the helicopter to get more consistent at doing those drops. And also maybe flying in between stuff. And again, don't worry, because the thing is, even if you push it just a little too far, and maybe you go just a little too fast and you end up crashing or having something negative occur, it doesn't matter. Because in the Game Master mode, even if I crash and blew up the helicopter, I can still right-click it, heal the helicopter, and it's back to full health, like new. But sadly, that last landing we didn't even hurt us. So we didn't get to show the healing. That's okay. If this Keybind tutorial was helpful in some way, I would greatly appreciate any thing that people could let me know that I could do better or things to improve on. Every like, comment, and subscription on YouTube really does mean a lot and goes a long way. If you would like to see some footage of me playing in action, I have a video where you can see a 50 insertion streak where I dropped off 50 troops in a row on the King of the Hill game mode. And I also will link to you the tutorial video so you can check out the flying tutorial. So once you get the keybinds down, hopefully you can move on over and start learning how to fly a little bit better or more consistently. I stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, usually like 10 a.m. Pacific until 4 p.m. But I'm also a college professor for a living, so sometimes life, schedule, things happen. Thank you again for watching the video. I will hopefully see you next time for another tutorial. Or maybe just a cool little short. Whatever it may be. Until next time, this is your chopper pilot signing out.